Every time we're together, it never be the same. If you're not here, how can you stay away, away so long? Well, why can't we be together? Ooh. Hey, TV's just thinking about, I'm getting on my John Cicada this morning. Just Another Day Without You. Ooh, I just love that song. Ooh, I've been jamming it all morning, dancing. Whoa, it never be the same if you're not here. How can you stay away, away so long? Ooh, it's just another day without you. It's just another day, making the time, trying to find the words to say to stay forever. All right. You know, I've always said it. If I didn't make it as a psychic, I'd make it as a rock star. You know, well, here I ended up being a psychic, so guess the rock star ain't gonna happen. But that's all right. I have fun singing. I'm so glad you guys are here. Listen, I want to tell you thank you. Thank you to all of you who came out to yesterday's video. We had messages from the spirit world. That's right. It was so much fun. I enjoyed it. You guys have been great. Not to worry. We got more. We'll have that every week. So we'll get your questions in, okay? So thank you so much. If you didn't see it, it's in the video queue right before this video. Well, I got to tell you, you know, first of all, I just want to thank you for being here. You guys are the best. And a lot of you have been saying, Psychic Bob, we want a ritual. We want to do a ritual on the Sunday show. We like being part of a group ritual. And we're definitely going to do that this week. And I was talking with Lady Angela, and we thought we'd kind of a combined ritual. And what I want you guys to do, there's a few things that you want to try to get this week so you can participate fully in the ritual on Sunday. What do you need? All right, 3 things. One, actually, I'm going to bring it here. One is a candle. It can be any candle, preferably a white candle, but any candle will do. All right, just have a candle. And then get a wand, either one that you have from your altar or find a stick or make a wand. You need a wand. And then you also need a copy of the Witch's Rune. And this is the one that starts, darksome night and shining moon, hearken to the witch's rune. East and south, west and north, here I come to call thee forth. All right, you can pick up a copy of the Witch's Rune if you don't have one over at Lady Angela's website, rarewiccaspells.com. She does beautiful ones on parchment. You can get them. Or if you don't have time to buy one now or can't do it, you can also find these online. But look up the Witch's Rune. I believe this was actually written by Doreen Valiente. I'm pretty sure that's who created this one. So see if you can find that one. It starts darksome night and shining moon. All right, and be at the show on Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern U.S. time, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific, 1 a.m. London, 2 a.m. Paris time, and be part of our show. We're going to do some magic using this, and we're going to lead a ritual, so definitely be there. All right, well, here we are. It's Wiccan Wednesday, and you know we're going to talk about more Wiccan stuff because I just love it. And by the way, how do you like my pentacle I'm wearing? This is one of my newer pinnacles. It's this little smaller one. It's done in sterling silver. I just love it. You know, I've been enjoying that today. And today we got a really interesting topic to talk about. A very kind of serious topic, but yet fun too. Hopefully even serious stuff can be fun. But I wanted to talk about Wicca in relation to men. Now, before all the women turn this off, say, I don't want to talk about men. I thought that we're going to talk about goddess. It very much ties in with the goddess. And this is for all men and women, not just a men's video. Because those of you who are women, some of you have men in your life, I think this could help. You've got sons, you've got brothers, you've got husbands, lovers, you know. So this is for everybody. But, you know, I wanted to talk today about particularly men and Wicca, because I feel that a lot of times men are overlooked in Wicca. Not intentionally. I'm not putting this from a hostile place. This is just a kind of a fact. A lot of circles are very female dominated where they have a high priestess. They may or may not have a high priest. But the thing is that the craft is so vital to our world today. And many of you who are women out there are dealing with family issues. You may be a young male who's going off the rails. You know, some of you have sons, maybe they're getting off into drugs and wild behavior. And you're thinking, how do I bring balance back to their lives? Maybe some of you are men out there and you're saying, can I be part of this? I don't know. I've never felt welcome because the circle near me is all women. And then, you know, your question is the craft for you. And some of you, are in marriages where your spouse has never been Wiccan, but now they're questioning it. And you say, well, can I bring them into the craft? What does it mean for them? How do they relate to all of this? And I think this is such an important topic because if we look at traditional Wicca, it's dual in nature. It means it honors the god or the Lord and the goddess. And so we're two. A lot of modern Wicca is so focused on the goddess that a lot of men think that there's no place for them. But the truth is the god lives and moves through the men as well. And actually the truth is that men are a combination of the god and the goddess, as are all women. And what got me thinking about this is I was reading a book by Starhawk. Actually, I don't have it here with me. But many of you know it's a famous book, The Spiral Dance. I'll put a link below for this. The Spiral Dance by Starhawk talks about, Wicca and her experience. And it was written in the 1970s. And it's interesting because when you read it, some of it's a little dated. But it's still very relevant, and it's a classic in Wiccan literature. And at that time in the 70s, I lived during this time period, I can validate all of it. There was a big push for women's lib, equality with women. And she ties it in this book with the concept of the goddess and how the earth-based religions of Wicca, paganism, are bringing the goddess back to the forefront of consciousness and how this is a great thing for women's liberation. And one of the things that Starhawk says in this book is that, we think of the women's lib movement or the goddess worship movement as solely for women. But she says men also have been damaged by patriarchal structures. And she talks about over time how patriarchy has dominated our Western culture to where, we've almost become stereotyped, in our roles. Masculine men, strong, women, weak, feminine. And she says the rise of the goddess is allowing women to step back into who they really are in their power. But it also is allowing men to come back to who they really are in the truth of who they are in relation to the god and the goddess. And she says that men have been damaged by patriarchal culture because the patriarchal culture has made men disassociated from their true selves, which is a nurturing self, which is a sensitive self, which is a psychic self, which is a self that loves the earth mother. And she talks about how because we've become, as men, disconnected from our masculine connection to the goddess, this is played out across history in wars and violence, and now in our modern day, destruction of the earth. And she says the men of old revered the goddess and they honored the earth, whereas today's men have forgotten the goddess and no longer honor the earth. And this has created great imbalance. And I have to tell you, I really believe there's truth in that. I honestly think that is so, so very true. And so I've been meditating this week about the role of men. And I've had a number of men write to me on my YouTube channel. And they said, Psychic Bob, I'm a male. I'm interested in what you're in, but I didn't think men could do this. Is it kosher? Is it acceptable that a guy could practice Wicca and witchcraft? I thought it was a woman's religion. And I had to reach out to these men and say, yo, listen, trust me. Not only can we should practice. And they said, well, what do I call myself? And the term is, well, you're a Wiccan, or you can even use the term witch. Witch is a term that applies to men and to women. And so this is something that I feel that, we want to reflect on right now. Let's start to allow men to come back into balance. So many men, as I said, have been disconnected from themselves. And when they come to Wicca, there's this kind of feeling of like, and I know I've experienced this in my own life, it's like you've come back to life. It's like part of you has been missing. And I really believe that that connection to the feminine side, the goddess, is what has restored balance to men and is bringing literally new life. There's a wonderful book that I would encourage you to start to read, all of you, male and female. This is by Christopher Penczak. It's called Sons of the Goddess, a young man's guide to Wicca. Wonderful book because it acknowledges male spirituality and it helps men to integrate with a connection with the goddess. I was talking to Lady Angela this morning, and I said, I'm going to talk about male spirituality and how males should embrace Wicca for balance in their life and wholeness and healing, and how the craft needs to make an effort to recognize young men. And she said to me, Bob, I think that's a wonderful idea. And she said, I always think about, she has a son, and her son's name is Angel. And she says, I always think about my son. And she said, I think of my son and I think of Jesus and Mary and also Horus and Isis. And I thought, isn't that wonderful? Like if we look at Jesus and Mary, whether you're Christian or Wiccan, I think many Wiccans honor Jesus as a great spiritual avatar. Some see him as an incarnation of the God. Many of us, I myself included, see Mary as an incarnation of the goddess. So if we said Jesus and Mary are the Lord and the Lady, what do we see there? We see a man who is incredibly sensitive and kind, and he is supported and strengthened by his nurturing mother, Mary. And Mary has, appeared all over the world and encouraged people to find their way to God and to include her in their journey. And I think that Mary and Jesus are really trying to, bring back that balance of the masculine and the feminine. We also look at Horus and Isis. Isis, when she fought to save her son from the destruction of Set. Her husband Osiris was killed, but Isis stood by her son, and as he ascended in power after the death of his father, she was the proud mother behind the throne. And so many images of Horus and Isis. And so we see the masculine and the feminine interacting and bringing balance to the whole world and the entire universe. This book, I really love it, Sons of the Goddess, because it does allow us to find that truth. I thought I'd read a little bit of this to you. Christopher Penczak has such a nice way of writing, and I wanted to share this with you. Hold on, I got to put on my glasses. By the way, how do you like my new glasses? I got bright pink glasses at the dollar store the other day. They were $1 and they're reading glasses. And I said, I need bright glasses because I keep setting them down and losing them, and I have a lot of dark stuff. So when I buy glasses, it all blends in. So I got bright glasses so I can't lose them. Isn't that fun? All right, so I'm going to read a little bit. This is the introduction section to this book, which I just think is really nice. And Christopher Penczak writes, he says, when I became a witch, I was just learning what it meant to be a man. In fact, I think I became a witch before I became a man. I began my study of Wicca when I started college. I was only 18, and when someone introduced me to the idea of the goddess and the god. Although I found witchcraft and magic very interesting, they didn't click with me right away. I was very skeptical. I appreciated the ideas, but didn't understand that didn't understand the spirituality that goes along with witchcraft. Even when I began, I focused on the science of the witchcraft, but truly it's a science, art, and spiritual practice. Now, years later, I realized I can't read today. Years later, now I realize that spirituality is more important than the spells, and that the spells lead you to understand your spirit. As I continued on my journey, I realized that so much of witchcraft, the craft as witches call it, focused on the goddess and the feminine power. I wondered where I'd fit in as a young man. My teachers were all wonderful, wise women, but I wondered if Wicca was really my spiritual home as a young man. Even the popular male images were of old wizards and mature kings, to whom I didn't relate. I learned that witches are walkers between the worlds, rounded with one foot in the physical and another in the spiritual. In many ways, I felt I was indeed between the worlds, but not very grounded. I was stuck between the dreams of a child and the responsibilities of an adult, playing with the idea of magic, focusing on the science of witchcraft, but not knowing a spiritual path. Even though I thought of myself as a sensitive guy, I was still a male, identifying with so much female energy and ritual that it left me a bit confused spiritually. Although I had great role models, craft teachers, and parents who shaped my evolving morals and character, I didn't have any male role models in my world of witchcraft. So I had to seek out male images of spirituality in the craft, and they were there right before me. I wanted to find teachings that included the god as well as the goddess. And so I looked to the ancient myths to show me the divine male. I looked not only for images of masculine divinity, but also for examples of the relationships between masculine and feminine divinity. Since I started my studies in the craft with my mother, the stories of mothers and sons as goddess and god particularly fascinated me. During my days in college, I also looked at the ever-changing relationship of the goddess and god through the wheel of the year. How the young god is born as a child, grows into adulthood, takes on responsibility as a king, and gives back to the community. I used that changing image as my role model as I went through my own changes. Through these role models and my practice, I learned to honor both my masculine and feminine energy to find balance. Through witchcraft, I learned how to be an adult. By embracing magic, I embraced both my personal power and my sense of responsibility to myself, my family, and my community. Through the spiritual path of magic, I learned how to be a true witch and a true man. Isn't that wonderful? I think this is so true. This book, I think, can help so many people, and I encourage all of you, whoever you are, male, female, young, old, get this book. Now, it's written, this book, for a young man, coming up in the craft. And so if for those of you who have young sons, even I'd say 12 years old or older, they could read this book. And it will start them to think about their role as men. One of the things they talk about in this book is that as a culture, we've lost the tradition of honoring a male's growth. In many of the ancient cultures, like the sign of becoming a man was that you would be invited on the hunt and you'd be given the chance to carry a weapon. And this meant you were now among the men. You weren't at home on mom's apron strings anymore. And as a culture, I think it's really true that we have lost this. And this book addresses rituals to help young men come into being men. And I think we need it, honestly, now more than ever. I was looking at some footage the other day of the shooter. You remember the young man in Florida who shot all these people? It was so tragic. And I thought to myself, nobody embraced this young man and brought him into manhood. And so what we have are people just like him all over the country, confused, isolated, alone, no male role models. From what I understand, his father was not really part of his life, and he was kind of a loner. And see, the craft, I think, brings such healing to men because it says there's a community that embraces you. And not only is there a community, we honor you, we recognize you're growing, you're changing. And so, for those of you who have young men in your life, maybe a younger brother or a son, I would encourage you, especially if you're following the Wiccan path, offer it to them. Lady Angela and I always have this talk about her son, and I said, well, are you raising him as a Wiccan? And she said, yes. And I said, I'm so glad to hear that. Because you see, what I find many times is I find a lot of Wiccans say, oh, my mom and dad forced religion on me. I was brought up in the, whatever church. And I will never do that to my children. And I always say, no, no, no. I said, depriving a child of all spiritual faith is not the answer to giving them an open mind. I said, give them the honor of a tradition, but also let them know, excuse me, but also let them know that they can choose it or not choose it as they get older. But give them something so they have a basis. And like Lady Angela, she's raising her son as a Wiccan, and he's so happy and balanced. And I feel like, the Wiccan culture will give him the honor and respect as he grows. And there'll be rituals for him as he gets a little older. He's young now. But when he becomes about 12, 13, I think that, the Purple Cord will do a ritual for him to welcome him into manhood. And you see, these rituals are life-affirming and empowering. And we as witches should use our magic to bring positive energy to life. So this is why I'm saying, we want to, as a community, honor our younger men. Let them know that Wicca has a place for them. They are loved, nurtured, and will be supported. And let's honor their cycles of life through ritual, through prayer, for recognition. So many young men, I have sometimes young guys come to me for readings. They're 15 to 18 years old, and they say to me, Bob, I just feel all lost in life because I don't really have anybody in my family that understands me, and I don't have any religion. And, I used to go to church when I was in nursery school, but I forgot all that. And what I'm hearing over and over and over is that we have a culture of men who don't know how to be men. I saw an interesting show the other day. What was that? I don't remember what it was now. So I think it was on YouTube, and they were talking about this is the script of a young man. They were saying that people are confused in relationships today because there's no script, no dialogue. And what they mean by that is back when you go back, let's go back to like the 1920s. There was kind of an order to courtship. A man knew at a certain point he could ask a girl to go on a date. It might be going to the malt shop to get a milkshake or a malt. But that was understood. There was a language and a formal way to do it in a proper way. And the girl knew that if she said yes, she was then indicating that she did want to spend time with this man and a courtship could begin. And now they're saying that in our modern culture, there's this kind of texting culture and this hangout culture where people aren't really clear if like we're on a date or we're just being friends. And so they're talking about like how as a culture we've lost the script, the tradition, and how we need that. And this is another way that I think Wicca helps us because, we have the rituals to help a man to be empowered so that he knows that he is a man and can make choices. Whereas a lot of men today walk around, don't know if they're, like nowadays there's kind of a fear, like, well, if I ask a girl out, is that sexual harassment? Because we don't know what the script is. The women don't know the script. The men don't know the script. And we've not had any of us any rituals to recognize at stages of our life where we're ready to start to date and start to meet people. And this goes across the whole spectrum because if we don't get it right when we're young, we're crippled as we get older. And as I quoted earlier, Starhawk, she said that the patriarchal culture has taught men, push down your emotions, don't honor it, don't deal with it. And what do we have? Now we have a world where people are creating toxic waste because they're disconnected. They don't know that the earth is their mother. And maybe their relationship with their own mother is fractured because she didn't know how to love her son because nobody taught her. And so we're at a point on the earth where we really want to, I think, embrace a new way. And this is why I feel that the craft, Wicca, is so powerful. It brings back balance, harmony, and it gets us all in touch with what's really real. So I won't beleaguer the point, but listen, get yourself Sons of the Goddess. I recommend, I think you can pick this up over also at Lady Angela's website at rarewiccaspells.com. If she doesn't have it, then check elsewhere, but check with her first. And while you're there, you can pick up your Witch's Rune paper for the ritual for Sunday. You guys are the best. Listen, I hope that gives you something to think about today. Tell me in the box below. I especially like to hear from any younger guys watching this. You know, did you have any rituals that brought you into manhood? Maybe you didn't. Probably most of you didn't, but tell me that you didn't or that you did. Or if you did, tell me that as well. And if you're a mother, I'd like to hear from you as well. You know, are you raising your son in the spiritual tradition? Maybe you've not thought about it to now. Maybe this is a good time to think about it. Share that with me if you feel like it. And definitely, everybody pick up this book. By the way, I'm not being endorsed by Llewellyn or Christopher Pinzak, but I do love his works. Anyways, guys, thanks for being here. I love you. I got to go back to singing this afternoon. Whoa, every time we're together, it'd never be the same. If you're not here, how can you stay away so long? All right, guys, enough of my singing. I better stick to Wicca rather than being a rock star. I love you guys. We'll see you back here tomorrow on Thursday. Vlog Thursday. You don't want to miss it. Love you guys. We'll see you then. Blessed be.